Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar on clearinghouse mechanisms, databases and tools under the Rotterdam Convention. My name is Javier Bonilla, and I support the Rotterdam Convention Secretariat with technical assistance, the updating of databases, and today I will moderate this webinar. Now I see that we have participants from different regions, and thank you for accepting our request and dedicating your time to participate in this activity. And now, how we'll proceed? So 1 hour and 20 minutes will be dedicated to this webinar, and we'll start by receiving the opening remarks of our Executive Secretary at Interim, Mrs. Christine Field. Then we will understand what it means, the clearinghouse mechanisms, and Mr. Julien Ortoneda will give us an overview of it. Later, we'll have an overview of the databases and tools by Alexander Michalowski, Claire Morel, and myself. And after the trigger from those presentations, we'll have a discussion in the Q&A section. So comments, feedback, and questions are welcome. And you can also leave your comments on the chat box or raise your hand to do a comment. Okay, so before we receive our presentations, allow me to recognize the presence of our Secretary at Interim of the Rotterdam Convention, Mrs. Christine Field. And it's an honor to have you here in this webinar. Thank you so much. And now I will like to kindly invite you to address us and open this webinar. Mrs. Christine, the floor is yours.
Um, Thank you. And I don't know why I can't see the camera on. Can you see me? No, I don't think so.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, then it's fine. I can't see myself. But it is a real honor to address you today at the start of this webinar. And I would like to extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished guests, in particular designated national authorities of the Rotterdam Convention, staff and professionals of different ministries who belong to one of the currently 166 parties to the convention. The Secretariat welcomes you all and greatly appreciates that you created the time to be part of this webinar. The clearinghouse mechanism is a multi-stakeholder global system that facilitates the exchange of information and expertise relevant for all three conventions, Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm conventions. The Secretariat has developed and is continuously enhancing a global knowledge base and information tool, fed and used by all members of the clearinghouse community. And I would like to really recognize the team in the Secretariat that is behind the clearinghouse mechanisms, the databases and tools. So big thanks for your tireless work and for organizing this webinar. Our technical assistance activities provided to developing countries and countries with economies in transition aim at building capacity in terms of human resources, policy, legal, and institutional frameworks. We provide and exchange information and practical tools to support parties so they can address their obligations under the convention and thus protect human health and the environment from hazardous chemicals and pesticides. And of course, a mechanism with a structured system of databases and tools that facilitates the exchange of information and expertise relevant for the Rotterdam Convention is of utmost importance. So the objective of this webinar today is to enable parties and in particular designated national authorities to easily navigate the Rotterdam Convention website, to utilize the various databases, tools, and other elements of the information exchange as key components of the clearinghouse mechanism, and to turn this information into action with positive impacts in their countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly positive that all of you are looking forward to the content prepared by our speakers. So let's actively listen and participate to the presentation and then engage in the lively discussion thereafter. And please put all your questions in the Q&A box or raise your hands at the start of the discussion. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Christine. And seeing we have a lot of participants, please don't be shy. Let your comments in the chat box and also in the Q&A section. And we are also have a section of Q&A at the end. So yes, welcome everybody. And now our first speaker is gonna be Julien Ortoneda. And Julien oversees the information technology and information exchange activities of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm secretariats. And he's based in UNEP Geneva. So now let's welcome him to give the presentation on overview of clearing house mechanisms for information exchange. Julien, the floor is yours.
Javier, thank you very much. Thank you all for attending this webinar. It's really amazing to see so many people joining the webinar, and I'm really pleased to see you all here. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or write in the chat box, or park your question for the Q&A at the end. I don't know if you can see my screen, Javier.
Yes, Julien, we can see it.
Okay, so as mentioned by Javier, maybe before diving into the different tools and information packages that we have, I would like to give you a brief overview of the clearinghouse mechanism for information exchange. So it gives you a bit of a background and context. In a nutshell, the conventions in various articles have made provisions for parties, stakeholders, observers, and secretariat to exchange information through various articles, mainly for the Rotterdam Convention, Article 14. But also, if you think about it, when we have to exchange information on contacts without proper records on official contact points and designated national authorities, we won't be able to exchange information to receive final regulatory actions or import country responses. So it's, information exchange is a bit everywhere in our convention. So the mission of the clearinghouse mechanism is basically to promote and facilitate this information exchange, and to do so, we have to undertake a number of tasks. The first one is probably to identify information and partners. So, obviously, parties and observers are the main ones, but we can go further than that. Another big task, of course, is to collect that information once it has been identified, and once we know who is owner of that information. Then we can also generate information either directly as a secretariat, or based on what has been submitted by parties and stakeholders and observers. Normally, it entails as well a good information management, which can include translation, repackaging, and very importantly, cataloging. Just as a matter of example, on cataloging is something that is often omitted, but if you think about all the notification of import country responses that we are receiving, we need to be sure on which category, if it's a pesticide or industrial chemical, we need to ensure that it has been submitted by a proper person, by when, if it's revised. So that there is a lot of work here in terms of cataloging to make sure that we have the right information. And then the last aspect is, of course, to distribute, disseminate this information to make it accessible. And this is usually done through our websites. So this is a bit the mission. From there, basically, in order to fulfill this mission, as Christine was mentioning, we have developed and we are continuously enhancing a global knowledge base. We can see it this way, which is basically made of information. It's also made of tools. And this knowledge base is used and fed, nurtured by all members of the, let's say, if we want to use a fancy word, clearinghouse community. The objective of this global knowledge base is of course to empower parties and any other stakeholders to contribute and access up-to-date quality information, of course, as long as it's within the scope of the convention. And therefore, we define the clearinghouse mechanism, and I would like to insist on the word mechanism, because as you may grasp, all of this is a mechanism, it's a process by which we can exchange information. So it's defined as a multi-stakeholder global system that facilitates the exchange of information and expertise relevant for the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention. How does it operate? As many similar systems that you will find in other multilateral environmental agreement, it is made of three major components. The first one is, of course, the information itself. Without information, we cannot do anything. This information is either produced or accessed by people. So we have communities of practice, expert groups, DNAs, for instance, different target audiences in there. And finally, the third pillar, the third component is a set of tools, knowledge management and processes that basically help this information to go from the author to the consumer of information in a proper way. Just few words on the scope of information. We can divide it in broad categories. So the first one is scientific information on health and environment impacts. Another one is information on best practices and expertise, including alternatives. Then we have a fairly big category, which is on legislative and regulatory information. We can have also information on technology transfer, technical and financial assistance, and then of course information on status of implementation of the convention and any other relevant information. To come back to this community of practice, we have something that is quite widely open and voluntary, of course. The first group is parties, non-parties, and observers. We of course have the secretariat itself, with also publishing reports and so on. We have United Nations bodies and specialized agencies, including other MEAs. We have Basel and Stockholm Convention regional centers. We have environmental NGOs. We can also have industry and private sector association, academia and research centers, workers unions, national local authorities, and civil society in general, including indigenous people organizations. Out of the, let's say, machinery of the clearinghouse itself, just a few words on the interaction between the program and the conference of the parties, and to ensure that we address the needs of parties. The program is basically following a strategy that has been welcomed in 2017 at the Conference of the Parties, and you have the reference here. Basically, the strategy indicates that at each meeting of the Conference of the Parties, the Secretariat will first provide a report on the activities that have been implemented in the biennium, and then the Secretariat will also present for the consideration of the Conference of the Parties work plan for the next biennium, and this work plan must be based on information needs expressed by parties. Those needs can be expressed through various processes. Could be a workshop, a webinar like this one, could be a workshop, could be online questionnaires, could be any other means that parties are interacting with the conventions, with the Secretariat, sorry. And then this is it.
Thank you so much, Julien. And now, thank you so much. And now I'm gonna give our next presentation, which is about an overview of the Rotterdam Convention, key provisions, databases, and tools. So, firstly, my presentation will be divided into the first part is an overview of the Rotterdam Convention and its key provisions to give you the basics and understand which kind of data we have in our databases. And the second part is an overview of the databases and tools. So we have here some of them. We have the country contacts and country profiles. We have the import responses database, the final regulatory action notification database, then some tools like the data visualization tool, the joint library of scientific and technical publications, the webinar library, and the resource kit. And now here in the chat box, I'm gonna share our presentation so you can click on those links and explore it, and maybe later have questions. Okay, so what is the Rotterdam Convention and the key provisions? The Rotterdam Convention of the Prior Informed Consent Procedure for certain hazardous chemicals in international trade is a global, legally binding agreement that entered into force in 2004, and it promotes shared responsibility and cooperative efforts among parties in the international trade of certain chemicals to protect human health and environment from potential harm. And how does the Rotterdam Convention promote shared responsibility among parties in international trade for certain chemicals to protect human health and environment? And the answer is through the two main key provisions. One is information exchange, and the other one is the prior informed consent procedure. So here, the information exchange acts as an early warning system of broader range of hazardous chemicals and pesticides, and the parties can inform other parties that some industrial chemicals of pesticides have been banned or severely restricted in the countries for human health and or environmental reasons. And a way this information can be exchanged is through the FRA or final regulatory notifications. And those notifications are data that makes up our database. And the other key provision of the Rotterdam Convention is the prior informed consent procedure, which is a mechanism for formally obtaining and disseminating the decisions of important parties as to if they wish to receive future imports of the chemical listed in Annex 3 of the Convention, and ensuring compliance with those decisions by exporting parties. And those decisions are shared through import responses of chemicals listed on the Annex 3. And those import responses are also data that makes up our database. And it's important also to mention that today there are 55 chemicals listed in Annex 3. Of those, 36 are pesticides, 18 industrial chemicals, and 1 in both categories. And you can check those chemicals in the link we have here in the presentation that we already shared in the chat box. So the first key provision, we said that the FRA notifications are a way used by parties to exchange information. So parties inform the Secretariat and other parties of their action to ban or severely restrict a chemical for human health and or environmental reasons. And here, some notifications are based on risk evaluation and others are not. Here also, each party has the obligation to notify the Secretariat when it takes a final regulatory action to ban or severely restrict a chemical within the 90 days after it has taken effect. And basically, those notifications contain 4 sections that you can find 2 links here, one with the template of the notifications, another link with an example of it. And basically, the 4 sections are the identity of the chemical. The first one is the name of the chemical, the UPAC name, CAS number. Section 2 is related with the final regulatory action if there was a decree or law to ban or severely restrict. And Section 3 is related with properties, physicochemical properties, toxicological, ecotoxicological, and also hazard classification. And Section 4 is the contact of the designated national authority with the signature. And before we go to the other key provision, it's good to understand that the designated national authorities of each party submit the FRA notifications to the Secretariat. The Secretariat verifies the notifications according to Annex 1 criteria, and also the Secretariat publish the notifications in the database and in the PIC circular available in our website. And if there are 2 or more notifications for the same chemical from parties of different regions and they comply with the Annex 1 criteria, the notifications are forwarded to the Chemical Review Committee, a group of experts that compare the notifications according to the criteria of Annex 2 of the Convention. And if the notifications comply with those criteria, the Chemical Review Committee recommends to the Conference of the Parties the listing of those chemicals in the Annex 3 of the Convention. And if all parties in the COP decide by unanimous decision to list the chemical, the pesticide or industrial chemical will go to the Annex 3. And here is where the peak procedures works. So for each chemical listed in Annex 3, now we have 55 chemicals. Each party has the obligation to submit an import response to the Secretariat. And each import response can be I consent, I don't consent, or I consent are the certain conditions, the import of the chemicals listed in Annex 3. And it can be a final decision. It means that the decision is supported by decree or law or an interim decision, so not supported by any decree. And there is a dedicated form also for import responses on the website, but also here in this presentation. So you can go again. You can also check some examples. And also it's important to say that the Annex 3 is not a list of banned chemicals, but it's a list that allows parties to make informed decisions about whether or not to import those chemicals. Okay, so in summary, we have that the Rotterdam Convention is a globally legally binding agreement that promotes shared responsibility and cooperative efforts among parties in international trade of certain hazardous chemicals to protect human health and environment. And it has two key provisions to reach their objectives. One is information exchange, where parties can inform which pesticides and industrial chemicals have been banned or severely restricted for human health and or environmental reasons. And one way to communicate that is through the FRA notifications, which are the data that we have in our databases. And the other key provision is the peak procedure that allows parties to take decisions on import, not import, or import under certain conditions, the chemical listed in Annex 3 of the Convention. As we mentioned, now we have 55 chemicals, and those decisions can be submitted through import responses. And those import responses are also data collected in our databases. And now I go to my second part of the presentation, and I'm gonna give you a brief overview of the databases and tools which are available on the Rotterdam Convention website. And then my colleagues are gonna go deeper into it and share the screen and share the website and go deeper and giving you more details. Okay, so some of our databases, as I mentioned, are the country contact and country profiles, FRA notification databases, import response databases, webinar library, is a tool, Resus Kit, and the data visualization tool. So the first database is the country contacts and country profiles, and it contains the contact details of the designated national authorities, DNAs, and official contact points, OCPs, of each party of the convention. And it's worth mentioning that today there are 166 parties in the convention, and each party shall designate one or more DNAs to cover both pesticides and industrial chemicals. And the DNAs are authorized to perform administrative functions required by the convention on behalf of the party, such as submission of import responses of chemical list in Annex 3 and submissions of FRA notifications. And the link of the database is here. So you can check if the DNA of your country are up to date, and also you can contact other DNAs of other countries in case you are interested in get information related to some pesticides of industrial chemicals. And basically, the database has a filter or it has also a map. So you can select one country and then it's gonna appears a screen with the details of the DNA and OCPs. And our next database is the FRA notification. And this database, you will find specific information regarding the notifications of pesticides and industrial chemicals that have been banned or severely restricted in each party of the convention. So you can also find the reasons for being banned. It was because if it was because environmental or human reason, if there was a risk evaluation to take that decision or not. The link is here, so you can explore the database. Basically, you will find a filter to select one country and check the FRA notification submitted. Also, there is a tab to see the last FRA received, and there is a filter to look for chemicals. So you can check which pesticides and industrial chemicals have been banned or severely restricted in all parties. And here we have an example. We select Brazil, and then it's going to appear all the chemicals that have been banned or severely restricted. And my colleagues are going to go deeper and explain this. And then we have the import response database. And this section, you will find the decisions of each party in relation to the import of chemical listed in Annex 3 of the Convention. So here you will have the decisions taken by parties. It means if they consent, no consent, or consent under certain conditions, the import of the chemical listed in Annex 3. And in the case of those parties that have taken a final decision, you will find the decree or law that supports the decision. And again, you have here the link, you can explore it, and basically we have a filter to choose a country and then check which decisions have been taken. Here in the PPT, we have an example. We choose Belize and we can see the category and then the response and the decision of import or no import the chemical in Annex 3. And then we have the resource kit, webinar library, and joint library of scientific publications. And those tools are sources of information intended to assist country in the implementation of the convention. And it contains guidance for DNAs, case of study of implementation of the Rotterdam Convention, scientific publications, and recording of webinars on interesting topics such as alternatives to highly hazardous pesticides and risk evaluation using bridging. And here you can find the links to have access. And almost finishing my presentation, we have the data visualization tool. And this tool provides you graphs and numbers of parties that have ratified the convention, the listing of chemicals in Annex 3, notifications of FRAs, and import responses during all years. And this picture, for example, you can see how many parties have joined the Stockholm, the Basel, and Rotterdam Convention through years. Okay, so thank you. I hope this presentation can be fruitful for you. And here I will let a picture to easily understand that the databases and tools are sustained by the key provisions of the convention and the articles that we have in the text of the convention. So thank you so much. Now I'm gonna give the floor to my colleague Alexander Michalowski, that will explain with more detail how to get access to the first three databases, the country contact databases, and the FRA notification database, and the import response. And Alec is in our team, prepares the PIC circular, collects, review, and verifies the import responses and FRA notifications. So Alec, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Javier, for this great presentation. And I would like to extend my appreciation and to welcome all the national authorities and other stakeholders that are present and participating at this webinar. My task is basically to show practically what the clearinghouse mechanism entails and how you can successfully navigate the website or navigate the web pages that are dedicated and are containing the information on various databases. Namely, I will start with the country contacts and country profiles, and then I will continue with the database related to the submitted notifications of final regulatory actions and import responses. And then my colleague Claire will shed a bit of light on the data visualization tool through some statistical information in relation to those submitted FRA notifications and IR responses from the parties. So basically, if you go to the countries, you can access the country contacts. And in accordance to Article 4, basically, each party is obliged to designate one or more national authorities that shall be authorized to act on behalf of the party in order to perform the administrative functions required by the Convention, related to its implementation at national level and international global level, of course. It is very important that the country contact details of both the designated national authorities and the official contact points always to be up to date and active or actual for the purpose of information exchange, both between the parties themselves, but also between the Secretariat of the Rotterdam Convention and the parties' DNAs and OCPs. Therefore, please be aware of this and always inform or let us know, the Secretariat actually, of any changes or updates, even small ones. So this communication channel can remain open between US parties and the Secretariat and between the parties themselves. And in this sense, the information flow can continue non-interrupted. So basically, when you go in the country contacts, you can, the first filter on the Rotterdam is allowing to see all the extensive list of all the designated national authorities from all the parties of the convention. And then you have an option to add to the filter the other conventions, Stockholm or Basel, and then to see the designated national authorities also for the other two conventions, in this case, Stockholm and Basel, and to see if potentially the authorities may be overlapping and is performing the functions for one, two, or all three conventions. If you filter by the country, you can directly access the designated national authorities, in this case, for example, for Japan, and you can see the information available in the website of the designated national authority of that particular party, and also the official contact point of that particular party. The other entry point for obtaining this information is the so-called designated national authority web page, where at the bottom of the page there is a list of designated national authorities, where clicking this link can basically allow you access to the country contacts again. And then the additional entry point for the country contacts or for the specific designated national authorities is the PIC circular. Basically, every 6 months, the Secretariat is publishing the PIC circular. And with the PIC circular, we are sharing the so-called DNAs, Designated National Authorities Register, which contains only the designated national authorities of all the parties, up to date and available in PDF format. It's available and is downloadable from this web page where the PIC circular is available. And then under countries, you can also access the so-called country profiles web page, which basically contains the information specific for each party to the convention. In the main page, you can find information on the date when the specific party deposited the signature and the ratification instrument with which it joined the convention, and the entry into force of that particular party. Again, it contains the contact details, the meetings at which that particular party was participating, no matter whether it was participating at other venue or other parties' meeting, or the meeting was organized in the country itself. And contains information on all the projects to which the party has been involved, and the general country information that is basically statistical data and information specific for the party available from the World Bank. And then of the utmost importance, I would say, at this web page on the country profile, you can find the specific submissions in relation to the country provisions, main provisions of the convention that already were in detail explained by my colleague Javier, and that is submitted import responses by the party on one hand, and on the other hand, submitted so-called notifications of final regulatory actions. So I will provide more details on these two specific submissions in the database specific for import responses and the final regulatory action. This was just for your information. Then at this specific webpage on submissions, you can find information on other submissions in relation to the pesticide information database. In this case, there is no information available from Japan. And the responses to the so-called export notifications and information exchange questionnaires that are available as information and meeting documents at COP level, for which that specific party provided responses, and they are available also at the country profile. I would continue now next to the final regulatory actions notification database. And under the procedures tab, you can find this information, general information on FRAs, but more specifically the information on the overview of all the notifications that have been submitted by the notifying parties. You're aware that all the parties of the convention under Article 5 are obliged to submit notifications of final regulatory action for its banned and or restricted substances. Via the so-called notification forms, the parties are transmitting this information to the Secretariat, and we are making it available in the website and also in the PIC circular biannually every 12th of June and 12th of December. This information is disseminated to the parties directly via email at the website, and also via the submission of so-called walker cards, where the information is available in the PIC circular. So why is this information on banned or restricted substances important for the parties, and how you can utilize it? Of course, you have the obligation under Article 5 to submit this information, but there is also Article 14 that was already mentioned by my colleagues, and information exchange. Basically, if the parties decide to ban or to restrict a certain chemical at national level due to human health concerns or environmental concerns, that is in a reality red light alert for other parties that are still potentially importing and using that particular chemical at national level. It might be useful to get acquainted with information that is available here at the website or in the PIC circular. Read through the actual reasons for the ban or restriction of that chemical by the notifying party, and that might in reality trigger or be a reason enough for the authority to undertake potential risk reduction measures from that substance at national level in order to protect human health and environment. So at this particular web page, in terms of information, you can see there are 4 tabs. The first tab is it refers to recently issued notifications of final regulatory actions. And those are basically all the notifications of FRA that has been published in the latest PIC circular. In this case, you can see all the FRAs that were published in the edition of the PIC circular of 12th of June 2024, and all the submitting or notifying parties. Then you can check this information by party. So there is a drop-down menu by which you can filter the notifying party for which you want to obtain this information, and you can basically consult or check all the FRA notifications submitted by that particular party. Then there is another tab which is providing the information of submitted notifications of FRA for non-Annex 3 chemicals. And we have a list of all the parties that have submitted FRA notifications for so-called non-Annex 3 chemicals. And then there is a tab specific for FRA notifications submitted or specific for Annex 3 chemicals for which already the PIC procedure is applicable. So if you want to see in depth the specific information that has been inserted in the database by the Secretariat, and then it's available in PIC circular and here in the web page, you can click here this I, which will provide a summary of the FRA notification that has been actually published in the PIC circular, and is also this summary is available here, where you can find the basic information in relation to the chemical that is banned, the CAS number, the date of entry of the FRA for the notifying party, whether we are talking about ban or about severe restriction. And you can find information on the summary of the final regulatory action and the actual reasons for the final regulatory action that has been undertaken in terms of human health and environment, or one or the other. If you want to get more extensive or extended information with regards to that particular notification, you can click on this extended button. And then clicking the same I, you can get the information not only about the summary, but about the specific, basically identity of the chemical in terms of its physicochemical properties, ecotoxicological properties, and the toxicological properties of the chemical in question that has been notified by the notifying party. With this, I think I can continue with the other database I want to present to you, and that's the import responses database. That's basically under procedure again. You can click basically import responses, and you can get information on the database of all the import responses that have been submitted by the parties from the date of entry into force of the convention up until now. It's basically an overall database of all import responses submitted by the parties. And this is in line, of course, with the Article 10 obligations for imports of Annex 3 chemicals that are subject to the PIC procedure. The parties are basically mandated to submit this import decision to the Secretariat within 9 months of the dispatch of the so-called decision guidance document for the newly listed chemicals. And response in relation to the future import of the chemical needs to be submitted. It can be either final or interim, and it can refer either to no consent to import, consent to import, or consent to import under specified conditions. Also here, you can see 4 specific tabs which are containing information on import responses that have been recently transmitted by the parties. That means those that have been published in the latest PIC circular. Then you have import responses by party, where you can select or filter out specific party for which you want to check the status of the submitted import responses to the Secretariat. You can select the third tab and basically filter out the chemical for which you want to get an information, and all the submitting parties in terms of import responses for that particular chemical. And at the end, you can also get the information on the so-called cases of failure to submit import response. Here you can see, for example, the information from Cameroon, missing the submission of 4 import responses, and the date at the right hand side that you're seeing is basically related to the publication of the PIC circular, where that information of the failure to transmit import response has been for the first time notified or informed to that particular party. In terms of diving deeper into which information you can basically check, which is of importance for the exporting parties in line with Article 11 requirements, because that's important for the exporting parties to basically comply with the decision of the importing party, and with the decision of the importing party potentially not to allow imports of the chemicals part of Annex 3. You can basically check or click the specific chemical, like for example, in this case, let's say we have Thermocos. Costa Rica has submitted a final decision which refers to consent to import only subject to specified conditions. And in this case, interested party that potentially would like to export this specific pesticide into Costa Rica needs to comply with the conditions of import underlined in this decision by the submitting party, in this case, Costa Rica. This is very important, of course, for the designated national authorities to share this information with all the respective national authorities that are involved in potential import or export of chemicals, NGOs, industry, retailers, and of course national registers, and of course also custom authorities. I hope that this information is sufficient for the time being and is enough for you. I will give back. Thank you very much for your attention. We open for any further questions, and I will give back the floor to Javier. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Alec. Now we have the data visualization tool and the joint library of scientific publications. And I'm gonna give the floor to my colleague, Claire Morel. She's an information system officer working on the clearinghouse mechanism for information exchange activities of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm secretariats. and she's also based in UNEP Geneva. Claire, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Javier, and good afternoon or good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. I will start by sharing my screen. So I will start by presenting you the online visualization tool, and first of all, how to access the tool. So this is a tool that is used for the three conventions, Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm conventions. So it can be accessed through the websites of the three conventions via the clearinghouse mechanism page. So if you go on the clearinghouse mechanism, you have a presentation and you can see all the tools that we provide. And within this tool, can access to this online visualization tool. So the aim of this tool is to first present data trends on the number of parties per year. So you can see number of parties to the three convention per year, number of chemicals also per year, and the number of import responses, final regulation actions, NIPs, which are for the Stockholm Convention, and legislations. For each of the graphs that you see on the screen, you can have access to the detailed table with filter, allowing you to see the number per year. Here you have the number of parties for each convention per year. It also presents more detailed data on import responses. Here we have a graph presenting response rate for import responses and also for final regulatory actions. So here we have per region, and we also have by development status of the country. So we have LDCs countries, OECD countries, SEEDs, and other countries. And again, we can access to the details here on which we can apply filters. So this is quite an interesting tool presenting a lot of different data of the three conventions. Let me show you also the joint scientific and technical publications. Again, this is a tool that is used for the three conventions, Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention. So it's available on the website of the three conventions. Here, there is a search form that allows you to browse all scientific and technical publication, either by keywords. So you can search health, for example. And we can also filter by conventions. By default, the three conventions are here, but if you want to only see the ones that apply to Rotterdam Convention, we can remove the other one. And we can see here the publications that concern health in the context of the Rotterdam Convention. For each document, we have the title, the date of publication, and the author, a small summary, and a possibility to download it in the language in which it's available. Here we have English, but some of them are in several languages. We also can filter by chemical if we want, for instance, filter of vinabacryl. We can see different publications on the chemical we are interested in. The last tool I want to present is quite different. It's not a tool that is developed by the various secretariat. It's not part of the clearinghouse mechanism, but it's information portal that displays information from different multilateral environment agreements, and it's in which we are participating in which we are sending information from from our three conventions. So it's a portal to access information on MEA's treaty texts, decision, contacts, events, and more. And it brings together 22 MEA secretariats. So we can have a quick glance at this website. We can see, for instance, if I want to see information about a specific party, I don't know, EMEA, for instance, we can see here different information. Like here we have the wetlands. We can see the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. We can also see to which treaty this party is so this country is a party, and what is ratification status, and when did they sign for this treaty. And we also can see the national reports for different MEAs, the action plans, and the documents that they may have also concerning the different MEAs. In this website, there is also an interesting element, which is a glossary of terms that concern a lot of different topics. But we can see here there is a lot about chemical and waste, and again, we can when we select a term, we can see the definitions, translation in other languages, and the contents that are related to this term. So agreements, documents, treaties, videos also that can relate to this term. And last but not least, this platform also provides free online courses that are still under development. So there are a lot of courses, but more to come. And there are courses about various topics. Again, we can choose here chemical and waste, and we can see here different online courses about Basel Convention, about Mercury and gender, Stockholm Convention, or Minamata Convention. So it's very interesting to for parties to access different online courses on different multilateral environmental agreements. So I hope that this presentation is enough. I pass the floor again to Javier for the rest of presentation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you so much. And now we are gonna go to the last part of the webinar, which are two tools. One is the resource kit and the webinar library. And I'm gonna share my screen right now. So basically, to go to the resource kit, you can go to implementation and then click resource kit. And resource kit is a comprehensive source of information of the Rotterdam Convention intended to assist countries in the ratification process and the implementation of the convention. And it contains guidance, toolkits, case studies, e-learning, and reference that you can explore. And for example, here you have the pesticide use, pesticide trade, and pesticide indicators in analytical brief. So you can find trends in total trade of hazardous pesticides by region or by chemical, and other guidance. For example, we have this important one, which is the guidance to designated national authorities on the operation of the Rotterdam Convention, and it contains a background and contextual information of the purpose and function of the convention, and step-by-step explanation of the responsibilities of countries as parties to the convention, and a checklist as a guide to the DNAs on actions required under the convention. And under toolkits, we have many tools here, but I'm gonna focus in this one, which is the FAO registration toolkit of pesticides. And this tool is a decision support system for pesticide registers in low and middle income countries, and it assists registers in the risk evaluation and authorization of pesticides. So you can explore, there are many, but because of time, we can go deeper in one. And then we have case studies, and you can check here, for example, the results of the Rotterdam of technical assistance in Latin America and Caribbean in this period, 2020 and 2021. And here we can check the activities developed in the region and the outcomes obtained in that period. And then under e-learning, we have the Rotterdam Convention quiz. So you can test your knowledge and also to know how much you know about the Rotterdam Convention. And other reference, we have important documents as the International Code of Conduct of Pesticide Management. And there are many documents you can explore here, so I invite you to explore the website and also give us a feedback later. Now I'm gonna present the other tool, which is the webinar library. So again, we go to implementation. Then under capacity development, we have webinars. And we have here webinar library. If we go, for example, we have here the webinar library. If we go for topics, there are some interesting ones. For example, alternatives. If we choose alternatives, we will find webinars related to alternatives to highly hazardous pesticides. And if we select, for example, one, let's say strategies to reduce the use of highly hazardous pesticides, we can find